Hi, thank you for joining me today. My name is Jim Gibson, and thank you for coming to my channel. I very much appreciate it. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Today I want to talk about history and how it's taught in public education. At least my experience, I spent 20 years in the Vista Unified School District as a school board trustee, one of 5, the only conservative on that board. And it's kind of interesting time. But before I was on the board, after I was released from active duty, after I was honorably discharged from the Marine Corps, I wanted to restart my business, and I was working pretty hard on my business, and of course sometimes you don't pay attention to what your children are learning, or you should, and I learned my lesson. I hope you're learning yours, that you should be talking to your kids and talking to your teachers who teach your kids. But to make a long story short, I decided I would sit down with my kids and ask them questions about, this is summer, they just started summer vacation, and I was going to ask them about what they learned, and one of them had pretty good marks in history. And I said, well, tell me about it. What did you learn in history? Well, we learned all about the Second World War. And I said, well, fantastic, tell me about the Second World War. And of course, normal kid, Dad, I don't want to talk about it. So let me ask you some questions because I want to see what you've learned. And I said, tell me about the Germans in the Second World War. And he looked at me in all sincerity, he said, Germans? They were involved in the Second World War? That was hilarious. I said, really? And you got an A in this class? You got to be kidding. So I said, maybe you know them as Nazis. And he said, yeah, I heard that phrase before. I said, well, tell me about the British, the English people. What was their involvement? What side were they on? And he couldn't answer it. And I said, well, let's talk about Japan. Let's talk about the Pacific. And I said, tell me about Japan. And he said, oh, Dad, peaceful country, peaceful people. And he said they have gardens and stuff like that. And he said, Dad, did you know that we're the only country in history that ever dropped an atomic bomb on humans? And I said, context, son. A little bit of context would be fantastic. So I realized that my son did not have a grasp of the Second World War nor 20th century American history. And the information he had received has been skewed. To be honest, wild skewed, hate America type of stuff, like, gosh, I just got done finishing years in the United States Marine Corps, and I'm hearing this stuff about anti-American stuff coming from. So I decided that I would teach my kids about 20th century American history. So we started with Teddy Roosevelt. We went through each of the presidents. We went through the First World War, went through the Second World War, the Korean War, and the Vietnam War. Explained all what happened, why it happened, everything that I knew about it, and I studied these things, so I knew about it. And it was kind of cool because we got a model of the B-17 plastic model, and we put it all together, and I was talking about how these brave individuals flew in that B-17, and a good percentage of them never came back. And they did that for freedom. And that we're a great country. If you've ever traveled in Europe or some of the other countries, I'm not against Europe, I'm not against other countries, but there is a distinct difference between us and them, a very distinct difference. And so I think my kids had an appreciation for 20th century American history. Every once in a while I'd ask them questions about what they're learning in school, and sometimes I had to correct them. That just wasn't so. That's a political viewpoint you're getting, son, daughter. That's a political viewpoint you're getting from people there in the school. So I decided it was time to run for school board. That this was unacceptable, some of the things that are being taught. Whole language was being taught. Phonics is the way to go. Whole language doesn't work. It really doesn't work. So to make a long story short, I decided to run for school board. I paid all my own way. Did not receive contributions from people. The first time I ran, paid my own way. I came in number 1 as that first race. I came in number 1 most of the times, if not all the times. I don't remember every race. But I did come in number 1. But it was kind of interesting. One time I was talking to a teacher. I had great respect for her. She was teaching honors class, and she was teaching American history. And I thought, wow, right down the area that I'm concerned about. I want to hear about it. So I was studying George Washington. And what I do in my life, and this is one of the books, just one, I don't know where all the rest are, but what I do is I like studying why people made decisions, why they made decisions this way or that way, what type of person they were, things like that. So I decided that I would study not only George Washington, but basically the revolution, the thinking behind it. What are people thinking? Why were they rebelling against England? What were the motivations, things like that. And I kind of got hooked on George Washington. It was kind of a interesting person, George Washington. So I read this book, studied it, underlined everything else in it. It's the only book that I could find right now. The rest are probably in the attic, but I highlighted it on certain things I wanted to come back on. And spent a lot of time studying about George Washington and things like that. Also read the book, The Crossing, a history book about what Washington did. And so I asked her in particular, I said, what do you think about George Washington? And she said, oh, gosh, what an idiot. I said, really? You think he's an idiot? She said, yeah, I think he's an idiot. And I said, that's what you teach kids? That George Washington was an idiot? I said, do you know any of the tactics that he used during the Revolutionary War? That some of those tactics are still used by American military today? I said, of course not. You didn't spend a year in infantry training in the Marine Corps, so you may not even know of those tactics. Why do you think he was an idiot? And she said, well, he lost every battle except the last one, and that was only by accident that he won that one. I said, he took a ragtag army who did not have food or supplies to sustain a very small army, and he went against the superpower of the day, and he used tactics that had never been used before that caused the British soldiers to back out of the United States. It gave us the freedom. This guy has so much integrity, it's unbelievable. The more I studied about George Washington, the more I made him my hero. Some of the things he did. He was brilliant. He was a brilliant tactician. His ideas, him and his people that he worked with, forming the Constitution, Declaration of Independence, all that they did was fantastic. This is a fantastic country. I could not believe that an honors teacher teaching history, one that I thought was actually solid, was teaching this nonsense that she's teaching. You, as a parent, have to pay attention to what the teachers are teaching your kids. Because I tell you what, kids look up to their teachers. They really do. They think they're almost like God, especially when they're younger. So you got to listen very closely to what they're saying. And it's unacceptable that that type of information is being passed out and being treated as if it's gospel truth. It's nothing more than political nonsense. There's a lot of people out there that don't like our country. That's fine if you don't like it, but don't falsify the history. Don't sit there and tell every sixth grader that America is evil and bad when it's the greatest country in the world, and our Constitution is fantastic. It gives you so many rights and privileges and things like that. And the government doesn't give you those rights. God gives you those rights. The government is there to protect your rights, to make sure they're not trampled on. And it seems like less and less we're being told that these founding documents, along with the founding fathers, are somehow undeserving of what they did. George Washington was a superhero, man. He was somebody that I have grown to respect, deeply respect. And I'm thankful for him and what he did and everything else. And I wish I could mimic a lot of the things he did with his integrity and his courage and things like that. Unbelievable. You should study him. It is a study that is well worth the time to do. And stay away from the political nonsense about him. But he was a great man. Did a lot of great things. And again, I'm running for State Superintendent of Public Instruction. A big, long title. But the bottom line is it's a senior elected position for public education in the state of California, and we really need a turnaround. The scores on students taking tests and the quality of education has just taken a dive, and the people in charge right now, the activists labor union, teachers labor union, I'll just say they're the activists. They are content with the way things are because they're raking in hundreds of millions of dollars that they use on political candidates and things like that. The bottom line is that it has to change. It's never going to change the way it is right now. The activists are completely happy. They got your kids. They teach them what they want to teach them. The same thing with the colleges. They teach the teachers that are going to teach your kids, they teach them this garbage. And so when they get in the classroom, they teach the kids the same garbage. And no possibility of correcting. Now, are there good teachers? Yes, there's a lot of good teachers that wouldn't say things like that. They are fantastic, and I've met a lot of them. And you know something, though? They got to be careful, because if they offend the activist union, their life will be difficult. Well, I tell you what, that needs to end. We need to celebrate the really good teachers, and there are really good administrators that kind of hide. They don't want anyone to know some of their thoughts and ideas, but there really are a lot of really good people in public education. Not all of them, obviously not, but there are people that are fantastic in public education. Thank you for watching today. Appreciate it. Please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe, and I'll put out some more of these videos. At least you know where I'm coming from. I don't know if the other candidates, what do they do? I don't know. None of them have any experience, day-to-day, real-life experience when it comes to countering the teachers' activist union. And they really need to be countered because they're not on your side as a parent or as a taxpayer. Thank you for watching. You have a great day.